Hey, Becoming Me. I am so excited to introduce you to my warrior friend, Kayla. Kayla, welcome to BecomingMe.TV.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
And y'all, Kayla is not a stranger to Becoming. We hosted a warrior conversation with her. We'll have the link to that conversation in the show notes so you can connect and watch that conversation. And Kayla has just become such a dear warrior friend to me. Like, it is such a gift from God to know you, even though we're literally across the country. But you've just been such an encouragement to me. And I am so excited for Becoming Me.TV to get to know you and your story today.
Yeah. Thank
It's
you
going to
so
be
much.
good.
It's gonna
Absolutely.
be good.
Oh yeah, girl, we're claiming that.
Yes.
So before we dive into your story, I would love for you to take a minute and just unpack who is Kayla. Like if someone isn't familiar with Kayla, who's Kayla?
Well, I am an AZ native. I was born in Virginia, but I've lived here my whole life, so I'm technically a native. It counts. I love the Lord. I've been leading worship since I was a teenager and just always on a journey to serve God in some capacity, musically or creatively. And currently, I work at Generation Church in Mesa, Arizona, as their brand director, and I'm involved in all things creative and fun and exciting and also mundane. But it's truly a dream job, and I'm so honored to be a part of what God is doing in Arizona through this church. And yeah, and I've been married for 4 years to my husband. We have two German shepherds, and we are currently knee deep in an infertility journey. And yeah, that's, we'll share more about that later, but that's like the bulk of who I am today.
I love it. And y'all, that's originally even how Kayla and I connected. So I lead communications at Church of Hope in Ocala, and we reached out. I was like, hey, can I pick your brain and just learn from you? And so she's giving me a tour of her building, and I'm getting so inspired. And then as we just kept talking, I just felt this warrior friendship connection with you,
Hmm.
beyond just professionally connecting. And so it's been such a journey, a privilege to be on the journey with you. And I'm
Yeah.
so glad we Zoomed to talk about church
Yeah.
communications. And now
I
here we
know.
are.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah, I love how God does that.
Hmm.
I would love for you to just take time right now and unpack your story. Like, what's made you who you are today? What's your journey? What's your story?
Yeah. Um, okay. Have like bullet point notes just to keep me on track because I tend to ramble when I get nervous. But uh so yeah, like I said, born in Virginia but raised in AZ. My parents got divorced when I was young and I was, you know, in between houses a lot in my childhood. I lived with my mother, excuse me, for most of my childhood, and it wasn't a great environment. It wasn't healthy. There was like a lot of like emotional neglect there. So I don't have like a lot of clear memories of my childhood, but I've definitely sorted through that through therapy, which has been great. But yeah, so then when I was 15, I decided to make the choice on my own to move to my dad and stepmom's house. And the two environments were like polar opposite. It was like going to a God loving house one week, and then the next week it's just like neglectful, emotional, like not much going on. So yeah, that's like a big part of how I'm structured today. I'm very reserved. I'm slow to speak. I'm an observer. I tend to, take the back seat when people are talking. Not anymore though, but that was like how I was raised, and I wasn't really raised to show emotion. So these past 4 years of my life, I've been like really diving into who I am, what I want, how I want to emotionally react to things, my diving into my emotional intelligence myself, my spiritual awareness, all that stuff. Um, but yeah, I currently don't have a relationship with my mother. Um, and that's just like a personal choice that I made. And even though it is a two-way street, it never was a two-way street from her to me. So, like at a young age, I had to make the decision to cut off that relationship so that I could heal, I could grow, I could continue my life without being held back by the thought of like what could be, or if she did get healthy, or if God touched her one day and like she was really on fire for God, would I? And I don't know. Right now I'm content. I've always known what I needed from that boundary. Um and yeah, it's weird to share, some people are like, "Really? You haven't seen your mom in 4 years?" I'm just like, "Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon. That's just like my story. That's how things have gone for me." My husband met her once, and that was at our wedding. And we haven't seen her since. So it's just like, yeah, that's how it is for me for that relationship. And that was like a big part of who I am today.
Mhm.
And you know, having such traumatic or emotional trials at a young age when you're still trying to figure out like what the heck is going on, and also the polar opposite environments that you're in, and it's just like not a great concoction for a super healthy person without God or without help. So yeah.
Yeah, girl.
um but yeah, so like I said, I moved in with my dad and my stepmom when I was 15, and it took me a while, but I eventually started like really attending church and really getting plugged in. And I was always the sibling out of the four of us who was excited to go to church and wanted to wake up. And even if like the car ride there was terrible, I was excited to be there because I was serving, I was doing something. Um, Even though I don't think at that point in my life I really understood what was happening or like who God was for me. I believe wholeheartedly that I set myself up for success by just going to church, with my parents. That it wasn't an option. I didn't have a choice, obviously. But yeah, it did wonders for me. So started going to church, I learned guitar, I found out I could sing, and I started leading worship randomly, because one of the youth directors or something like that was like, "Hey, can you sing and play guitar?" I was like, Yeah, I guess, kinda. I know 4 chords." Um, and so they're like, "Okay, lead this women's girls' night, women's ministry thing." I don't know. Um, so I did. I just grabbed my little guitar. I probably sang like 3 songs, and it was just me, and I was still, learning and figuring it all out, but that was like my first foot in the door of worship, and I enjoyed it, and I've been leading worship ever since. In and out of different churches from 16 to 30, but I've always been striving to do something within worship, whether it was working in worship or just leading worship, you know,
Mhm.
as my serving time for God. Um, and yeah, I've been leading worship ever since, and it's a big part of who I am, and I've grown so much through worship. I worked at a church when I was, I think, 17, that same church that
Okay.
I got started at. So I got a job there in the worship department, and my mentors were great. I learned a lot. I was being challenged. I was still like brand new to a healthy atmosphere. So it was still like a struggle for some things. And then that church ended up, it didn't work out. My mentor left for personal reasons. And then it was just like, that wasn't where I was supposed to be. I needed to just move on. And that was hard because that was like my first church. I grew up in that church. I learned so much. But I'm thankful, and I wish them the best, and they're doing great. But it was just like, that was my season. It ended. But I feel like I grew, and I realized like, I can't control every situation, even if I'm great. Some people might not agree, but yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's incredible.
Like, what happened after that? Ooh.
I know, girl. I'm like, I love just the different, like, and I'm already even seeing, and I don't mean to interrupt you here, but
No,
because
you're
we
fine.
had the warrior conversation too, and hearing some of the themes and the different, like, almost chapters and seasons in your story you're unpacking, I can see
Yeah.
how different themes, so which we'll get to. But anyways, go back. Like, this is so, so cool. Thank you for unpacking for us.
Oh, yeah, of course. I feel like, it's so common, like, people hurt you, businesses hurt you. It's not the thing or it's not God, it's just people, and, that one really hurt. It took me a while to get over that. Um I continued even though, like, my blinders were off, I continued to kinda lead worship for some things, and then I just, like, slowly backed away and just stopped attending, and then I took, like, a 2-year break from having a home church, and I just did, like, contracting at a Gold Canyon church, which is, like, a very older generation atmosphere, so I went from,
Okay.
like, here to, like, over here. It was wild, so I wasn't doing anything for myself spiritually. I was just going to church,
Yeah.
leading worship for a congregation that I was not, like, really committed to or connected to. Um, and yeah, I probably did that for a year or 2 with some friends, and, it was fun, but it was not life-giving. I was not, like, really connected to God in that time, so I was still going to church, I was still leading worship, but I was not, doing my best to make sure that I was, grooming and helping my relationship with God blossom during that time.
Mhm.
Um, and then, yeah, I don't know what switched, but I feel like in my early 20s, I just started dating, and I think
Okay.
that was, like, the thing that broke my shell and helped me realize that I needed some, like, independence and, like, who is Kayla gonna be? Yeah, I don't know. I was always like I said earlier, like, reserved. I sat in the
Mhm.
back. I didn't really speak up. Um, most of my friends were, like, family or
Mm.
school friends, but I switched schools in the middle of the year, so even those friendships kinda dwindled. So I was kind of like a loner in a way, but, I think I had fun most of the time by myself. I'm good company sometimes. But yeah, so I think, like, just having that
Mm.
mentality always,
Mm.
um, and just kinda, like, going through the motions, going to work, coming home, going to school,
Mm.
whatever, repeat rinse and repeat. It was always, like, the same thing. I didn't branch out, I didn't really
Mm.
try. And then, yeah, I don't know, one day I was just like, "I'm just gonna start dating because I dated, but I was just, like, people I knew, you know? It was, like, a
Mhm.
friend of a friend or a family friend, and it was easy, or someone from church, but I never, like, put myself out there and, like, was trying I never put myself out there, and I never, like, actually tried to figure out who I wanna be with, how I want my family to look, how I want my future to look. Um, and yeah, that was also a crazy time dating, especially in, I don't know, yeah, 20 what year was that? I don't know, but I was, 10 years ago, I guess. Ugh.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that was wild, and I don't know. I mean, I was, like, fully on all of the apps. None of them really ever worked. But I was just accepting
Yeah.
opportunities. I was just accepting dates because of, like, I don't know what I want. I don't know who I wanna be with, so why not just
Mhm.
do it? And, that was terrifying because I'm
Yeah.
also, like, super shy. I hate small talk because I don't like, especially at that time, like, "What do you do for fun?" Like, "Nothing." I work and I go to school. So yeah, that's rough, but yeah, so I just dated and I don't know.
Mm.
My family was shocked at that point. They're like, "Who are you? What are you doing?" Because I have never, like, just gone on a date with a stranger, you know? So it was
Mhm.
a lot of, like, okay, you're gonna just go out with a stranger right now? Like, yeah, I am. um, but honestly, that was so fun for me.
Yeah.
The dates weren't always great, the guys weren't always great, but it was like an opportunity where I was pushing myself out of my comfort zone. I was learning to speak for myself. I was setting boundaries with family. Like, I did not introduce everyone to who I was dating, like, so
Yeah.
weird. So, that was new for them, me setting boundaries. It was also new that I, like, had this glow up of independence,
Mhm.
um, and that I was just doing what I wanted to do. But shocker is that I did meet my husband on Tinder.
You did?
I did.
I did not know this. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so, at that time, back up a little bit, I was at a local church leading worship. I just, like, church hopped a little to figure out what I wanted, and I ended up at a church in Gilbert, like, pretty big, pretty well known, so it was, like, comfortable.
Mm.
A lot of people went there. I could just, like, go in and sneak out, and I didn't have to, like, talk to anyone because there was a lot of people. So, I went to that church for, like, a a year, and then I started serving on the worship team. And I just took a leap of faith on myself, and I just, like, I don't even remember how it happened, but I think I emailed the worship pastor or worship director or something where there were auditions or however it may have happened,
Mhm.
but I ended up auditioning. I was, added to the team, and through that process, I met my best friend, and it was just, like, the best time of my life. I had so many
Mhm.
church friends, my best friend, I was leading worship with her. I felt like I was finally on the trajectory up, you know, and I was just excited. I was learning so much, and it was just so different than anything I had been a part of church-wise before. So, through that connection of worship and my best friend, my husband, Andy, was also leading worship at a church and has been leading worship at a church in the valley. And if you've ever been to Arizona or know about the valley of, like, worship leaders, it's, like, very close knit. There's a lot of connections. So he's been leading worship forever too. And my best friend was like, "Hey, I think I have a connection. Like, I have a guy that he's really cute." And she, like, just, like, showed me a picture real quick. I had no idea what he looked like really, but I just saw the beard and a guitar, and I was like, "Yeah, that's great. Let's
Yes.
go for it." So, she kept saying, like, "Oh, I'm gonna introduce you," and, turns out that his brother was at the church that I was leading worship at. So, his brother also knew of me and was like, "Yeah, I could see it." So they were all, like, talking together, and Andy was in a small group with all of them, and it's just, like, small world, super small world.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, anyway, so they kept saying, like, they would introduce us, and, we just ended up swiping right on each other on Tinder
I love it. That's
because
awesome.
they never did introduce us. They always said they would, and they never did, and it's funny when I tell that story because people are just like, "Oh my gosh, Tinder?" And she's like, "Yeah, like, there's normal people on there, like,
Yeah.
it's what you make of it, like,
Yeah.
it's not how it is, it's just how you treat the app," and that's what I did. At first, I was just, like, going on dates, but then I was like, "Okay, I'm getting older, so I really need to, like, be wary of my time and,
Mhm.
how things are going." So, um, but yeah, so that happened. We dated for a year, we got engaged, and then the next year we got married. So it's just been like this whole crazy journey of, like, the worship culture and then my husband, and we have, like, a small group of people that are all within the worship culture around the valley. Um, yeah,
Wow.
so that's how that happened.
That's so cool. I love that. And that was what, 4 years ago that you got married?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
4 years in March, we got married. Yeah, 2019. It's crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah, but so yeah, throughout like my whole dating journey with Andy, he is a very his upbringing is completely different, very independent. His mom, he also comes from a divorced set of
Mhm.
parents, so he was like used to that environment. But his mom was a single mom at a time, and so she was like very um, just strong, and
Mm.
they always like were super independent. They didn't really rely on mom or dad for anything, um, which I think she sometimes says like, "Oh, I wish I did it a little differently." But they're like, Andy and his brothers are just like, "No, like we're good. Like you did great," and she did. They're great men of God, and they're both very independent. And yeah, ever since meeting Andy, I was like pushed by him in such a great way to be independent, to be strong, to speak my mind, to be okay with confrontation,
Mm.
to be okay saying something even if it doesn't come out right the first time. Um, and that was great in a sense, but also like terrible in a sense because my family was not used to me speaking out for myself, basically. Um, and not necessarily in a bad way. It was just like, Kayla's quiet, like Kayla goes with the flow. Like I was just kind of always there and kind of just like a little wallflower. Like I didn't have an opinion really. I
Yeah.
didn't really care. I wasn't like super happy, so I wasn't like vibrant. Um, but when I started dating and focusing on myself and then finally meeting Andy and dating him, and all of a sudden I was just like blossoming and they were not prepared for that. Um,
Mm.
so that yeah, that was a big part of like
Yeah.
me realizing like, okay, the leave and cleave or however it is, like that is fully true. Like you have to leave your family and go with your husband and that's your new family. And that was like
Mhm.
such a journey because granted we were engaged for a full year, which I do not recommend. Please do not do that to yourself. It was way too long. Um, so that full year, we're just like
Mm.
butting heads with families, and I'm trying to honor my husband, but I'm also like the timid little girl that still doesn't know how to speak up for herself or like
Mhm.
how to really communicate
Yeah.
effectively and even sometimes respectfully. So that was like always a tension point because I was growing and evolving, and they were like, "What is happening? Who are you? Like,
Yeah.
what is happening?" So yeah, that was super fun. Um, we've definitely like gone through it, moved past it. We've all said our apologies, but it was just like it was a crazy shift
Mhm.
um, to go from like just being a part of a super close knit family and then realizing like, oh, okay, like maybe I don't agree with everything that's going on, or maybe I don't
Mhm.
like have the same opinions anymore. Maybe I want to do it differently.
Mhm.
And just like in the process of also being engaged to a guy from Tinder and like learning him still, learning his family, like figuring out
Mhm.
our life. Oh, that was a lot.
That sounds like a lot.
Gosh, yeah. So that's why I joke about it, but I truly do not recommend a long engagement. Like, get it going. So that's
Yes,
advice for you,
I
Emily.
received that. Thank you. That's okay. When you know, I've heard, when you know, and then just go
Yes,
with it.
just do it.
Yes, I received that, girl.
Yeah. So yeah, that was like a
Yeah.
lot, especially for a first year marriage. The tension didn't end just when we said I do. There was also
Yeah.
like, some fallback after that. And we were married and it was new and I was living alone. with another guy, like for the very first time, like
Uh-huh.
fully everything was brand new. And, sometimes people don't know how to receive or accept that, like, you're leaving or you're growing and your opinions are
Yes.
different, like how you react is different. And that's just like a really hard pill for some people to swallow, especially
Yeah.
parents. And my parents have said this, and they were just like, I'm the first girl to get married. So that's also part of it.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, they're just used to little like wallflower Kayla. And when I blossomed,
Yeah.
they had to accept that they were just
Mhm.
not ready, and they weren't ready
Mhm.
to let go, even though Andy is a
Yeah.
great guy and they recognized that he was a great guy. I think
Yeah.
they were like floundering a little bit and trying to like figure out what do they do from here.
Right.
And um, yeah,
Yeah.
super fun first year of marriage stuff.
It's a big adjustment.
Yeah, yeah, it's such a big adjustment, and it was a big adjustment for everyone. Like, I have a little sister, and
Okay.
I was living at home for forever, basically.
Yeah.
And then I was just gone. So
Yeah.
it's a big adjustment for people, and
Right.
grace is great.
Yeah.
And I wish I knew what I know now back then, because at the time I was just like, why are my parents like this? Or like, why is this happening? This should be so fun.
Yeah.
Um, and it wasn't all bad, but yeah, that was like just a
Yeah.
crazy thing that people don't really warn you for, especially when you're like, you know, especially when you're like living at home and
Yeah.
you're under your parents' roof, but yet you're an
Mhm.
adult and you're like trying to figure out your adult life
Right.
without your parents, even though your parents are still there. So
Yeah.
that's just a lot of like
A lot of
stuff.
transition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and even like you said too, you're blossoming and you're growing and you're changing and you're really evolving from, how you were being the wallflower or not being as talkative or
Hmm.
as outspoken or, vibrant like you shared, and you're growing and changing. And so then you're
Yeah.
bringing this personality that people aren't used to, and your
Right.
relationship status has changed and you're moving, and that's a lot to adjust to yourself, and then how
Hmm.
other people are showing up like, "Wait, whoa, you're changing and we weren't ready for it."
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
that's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. And I'm glad I can look back now and be like, okay, like I get it. I understand. Like, love my family. They all had great intentions. And I hope they see that from my end too. Like, I'm just trying to figure this out. I know they're just trying to figure this out. But yeah, that was definitely a quick and harsh reality that I was not expecting. And
Yeah.
that's what like really led me on the journey of like, okay, Andy, it's you and me, and we're gonna figure this out together.
Mhm.
We are not gonna like let other people's outside opinions affect us. We're going to like honor our parents and our families, but we're not going to just continue the course because that's
Mhm.
what has been happening
Right.
for our whole lives. So we're going to start fresh with each other. We're going to figure out how we want to live, how we want to, raise a family. And that's what we did. And
Wow.
I don't know, I think we've done okay so far. We've done fine for 4 years, we're still learning. Um, but yeah, it's been like a super intense journey of just me having to figure out who I am.
Yeah.
And my thank God for my husband, because he's so different than me. He's like the well-spoken guy who just like can come up with any response on, immediately. And I'm just like, I'm a processor. I have to figure it
Mhm.
out. I need a moment to really think what you said, and then I need to craft my response.
Mhm.
um, so I think we've like leveled each other out in that aspect.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I've been just on a boundary journey and figuring out how that looks for us. And like I said, trying to like turn a new leaf and start fresh and figure out like what works for us, what doesn't, what we want to do,
Right.
what we don't want to do. And that is still happening to this day. Like we're still trying to figure out what the heck we're doing because who really knows what's going
Who
on?
kn no, we're all trying to figure out what we're
Yeah,
doing.
we're all just trying to figure it out.
Yes. Yes, I'm with you.
But yeah, so I don't know. That was like a lot, but that was where I how
Mm.
I got to um getting married in 2019, and then 2020 hit. We bought a house like the week before COVID,
Wow.
which was insane and a God thing because it just happened. It was like we signed our papers, we got the keys, and then that weekend everything shut down.
Wow.
Um, we had a lot of friends who couldn't like be in our midst or in our circle right then because of COVID, and we had a lot of friends who were pregnant at the time, so everyone was scared. No one knew what was going on, so we were just like kind of alone. We didn't have many people to help us. Thankfully, we did have coworkers from church come help move, which was so sweet and such a blessing. But yeah, that was like a weird transition from
Yeah.
just like figuring out married life and then buying a house a year later, COVID, and yeah,
Yeah.
that was rough. I
I
know it was
believe that.
rough for everyone, but yeah, it's just like so many things you
Wow.
don't expect to happen. And yeah, we've been, yeah, when I think about my husband and I, I'm like, dang, it's been a wild 4 years.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's been crazy. So anyway, COVID happened, and then we were just like randomly one day like, should we start trying for a baby? And we're like, yeah, sure. Like I said, we had a lot of people that in our group that were pregnant. Some already had kids, so we were just like, that sounds fun. I mean, we at that time we had been together for 3 years, so it had it wasn't like brand new. So we had time together alone, and we were just excited to like see what happens. Like we weren't
Mhm.
trying, but we weren't not trying,
Uh-huh.
you know. And we got pregnant super fast in October. Um, and that was a shock because that just happened. Like we weren't doing anything special. And I actually found out through a dream, which was also crazy. And this dream I just randomly had one night that
Mhm.
I took a pregnancy test and it was positive, and I woke up
Wow.
at like 5 a.m. and I was like, sure, why not? I think I have some in my drawer, so let's just take one. And then it was
Wow.
positive. Yeah. And so I then took like 60 just to really make sure because so weird. But yeah, it was positive. And then, yeah, I told Andy um, in like a cuter way. I like waited a little bit and not a lot, but I waited like a couple hours
Uh-huh.
and just to get like a real pregnancy test that would say pregnant because I felt like if I showed him the little one with the lines, he'd be like, "What the heck is that?" um, so yeah, that was how I told him, and yeah, that was such a sweet time, and we were so excited. And our Andy's brother had just had a baby
Nice.
the day before, so we were able
Wow.
to share that moment with them. Um, and at that time, they lived right down the road, so they were the first people we told, and it was just so sweet and cute, and super super exciting.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it was right before Thanksgiving, so we told all of our family during Thanksgiving, and yeah, it was just like the
Mm.
holidays were happening. It was things were going good. We were excited. And then we found out that we had a miscarriage um, in December, right before Christmas.
Oh.
Um, and that was like a miscarriage. So that was a lot of back and forth, like, okay, maybe the baby's just small or developing slower. So it was a lot of like maybe, but maybe not. Maybe you're good, maybe you're not. Come back tomorrow, take more blood. It was just like a full week of did we lose the baby or not? And that was torturous. And I do not wish that on my worst enemy. It was just
Mm.
like, you're just sitting there like, do I celebrate what's happening or should I start the mourning process? No idea. Um, and then so we finally got the confirmation that we did lose our baby. And like I said, that was right before Christmas and Christmas Eve services. Oh, this is a memory. Okay. The day we found out that we lost our baby, it was Christmas Eve service rehearsal.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah. And at that time, thankfully, Andy and I were leading together. So we were still together, but we had no idea how to react. And so we went to work and we just did rehearsal and we
Mm.
sang all the songs and we, cried later. But yeah, we went to work and we didn't tell anyone. We told one of the executive pastors just because she's like family. But even she was like, no one knew how to react. So yeah,
Wow.
that was a big part of like, okay, Kayla, you need to stand up for yourself because through this
Mm.
whole process, I wish I would have known that I can say no, or I can say, hey, I can't do that, or I need to stay home.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I had no idea, and it was terrible. So we did service. We still went to family Christmas.
Wow.
Um, we were just probably in shock and not really like accepting or feeling anything because still at the time I was technically still carrying our baby. So nothing was happening. My body was not um, passing. Nothing was happening. So
Wow.
we had to go through life because we thought that's what we had to do.
Mhm.
We didn't give ourselves a second option because we didn't know that there was even an option. And I do know that we both like regret not telling each other, like, hey, it's okay. Like, they don't need you to sing that song. Like, it's okay. Take the day off. Your pastors will understand. Your boss will understand.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, we had no idea. We'd never experienced this.
Yeah.
So anyway, so yeah, we went through Christmas and um, did all the things. And then, like I said, my body wasn't progressing. So I had to have a procedure done called a DNC. And that was New Year's Day.
Oh,
Yeah, it was just like the worst holiday grouping
yeah.
ever. Um, and it was during COVID, so I had to go alone.
Oh,
Um, so it
yeah.
was just like a lot of newness, a lot of intense emotions coming out of all the marriage stuff that happened, and then like super exciting, super new, but still like being alone because you're isolated because of a pandemic,
Yeah.
and then going through the process of losing a child, and then having a miscarriage and going through all of that, and yeah,
Wow.
that one that one sticks with me, and it was just like so lonely. The hospital was so cold and so dreary, and it's just so stinky. It
Yeah.
just sucks.
Yeah. Yes.
And I know like a lot of people have that same experience. Even if it wasn't during a pandemic, they had to do it alone or just like felt so like not comforting at all. Like no one was really there for you. And I don't know. Hopefully that
Yeah.
would change, but it's like everything is so business as usual. This happens all the time. People come in and out, and um, even the verbiage that the hospitals use are just like very dry and sad and factual, and there's like no fluff anywhere. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I brought that up because even though we had just been through all of that, I had a DNC on Thursday and I still went to work on Sunday. And my body was still going through the after effects of that procedure. And gosh, I don't know. I wish I knew what I know now, because I feel so bad for that girl, you know.
Mhm.
I feel so bad that I had to go through that alone, that I couldn't give myself the space to grieve, to like
Yeah.
take care of myself. I've always been um, concerned with other people, especially at church. Like, I felt like it was such an honor to be on a platform, whether I was just there or singing in the back or singing in the front. Um, and I was just so happy to lead worship. So I disregarded everything just to make sure that like my church was being looked after. Excuse me. That my church was being looked after, and that um like I was doing my job, even
Mhm.
though it wasn't like I wasn't getting a check for being on stage, but that was my job. That was my
Yeah.
commitment. And I loved it, but I did not have the awareness or even the like knowledge that something as life altering as a miscarriage, like, you can just say no. And
Yeah.
I've been on that journey for ever since, to be honest. And I still struggle with saying no, but I feel like once our eyes were awakened to, hey, don't go, or they don't need you, they can figure it out, they can schedule around
Yeah.
you. Um, Once we like opened our eyes and saw it a little clearer, we were like, okay, let's make sure we're taking care of ourselves. And now I say no to everything.
That's
Just kidding.
awesome.
But it's true. Like, I do pick and choose like where to spend my time, especially if it's something that's going to be like emotionally triggering, you know, like
Yeah.
a birthday party or a baby shower or a gender reveal, or
Yep.
I don't know, a pregnancy announcement. Um, or if it's just something random, like, I don't know, it's Grandparents' Day. Like, that is things like that trigger you. Maybe you don't recognize it, but it's just like, why would you put yourself through something that is not going to benefit you in any way? Or
Mhm.
you're going to be so distracted and so hurt by just being in the presence of whatever it is, that it would just be better if you weren't there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's a whole thing. And
Yeah.
um that whole journey has led me to therapy. It's led me to open up about how I'm feeling with my husband, with my family, um, and to create boundaries of like, this is what I'm willing to do. This is what I'm willing to put myself into. I can give my heart to this, or I cannot. Um, and that's also been like a cool journey, but also super hard, because no one gets it unless you've been through it.
Yeah.
Um, and we had to learn uh, that people who aren't comfortable with grief kind of just like shove it back in your face a little bit, or if they can't sit with you in a moment of sadness or heartbreak, um, that you kind of just have to be okay with that, and you have to realize that everyone is different. And if they're not comfortable sitting with you in your grief, then that's okay. But you have to find an outlet for people who are, or you have to like open up the doors completely and just be like,
Yeah,
"Hey, this is what I need. Um, this is how I feel our relationship has been since XYZ. This is how I would want it to be, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah."
yeah, right.
Yeah, that was a lot all at once.
No, that I mean, you have so many golden truths that you've shared along the way, and, it's been fun hearing even more of your journey because, like I mentioned a couple minutes ago with your warrior conversation, you unpacked the importance of boundaries, and,
Mhm.
it's okay to say no, and no is a full sentence as well.
Yeah.
I think often we feel like we have to apologize to say no or give
Mhm.
a reason, and you don't have to. No is a complete
Right.
sentence. I don't remember where I originally heard that, but it's a truth that we can hold on to. And so I think
Yeah.
even hearing all the different themes in these seasons and what's brought you to where you are today, it even gives me greater understanding. And I respected you before, but the
Mhm.
respect I have for you and the struggle behind the scenes, it's so easy for us to look at somebody where they are now and not see what they had to fight through to get to
Right.
this point, and you had to fight to get to where you are right now, and that's a
Mhm.
big deal, a really big deal, and what you've journeyed
Yeah.
through is significant, and, yeah, you're a warrior. You are definitely a warrior, for sure. So,
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely been a fight, and even though, like, in the midst of all of these small fights that led to bigger ones or whatever, I didn't recognize, like, that I was fighting for connection at my mother's house. I was fighting for an emotional mom-daughter relationship. It wasn't there. Whether she knew how to do that or not, I don't know. Probably
yeah.
not. Um, but, I feel bad that she doesn't know me because I'm pretty great.
Yes, you are. You
And
are great.
yeah, it's sad because, like, that's just a relationship that she was willing to, not put effort into when I was still
Yeah,
so young. Um, and, at that time, I was not in a place to lead that charge of, like, keeping my relationship with my mother because, like I said, I was still a minor. I was still growing,
yeah,
thing,
yeah,
so, uh, yeah, throughout all of those, like, fights, eh, you don't see it while you're in the midst of it, but I'm fighting for connection, I'm fighting for purpose, I'm
yeah,
fighting to be accepted. There was so much rejection in my life, really throughout the entire thing, but so much rejection, especially that stemmed from the atmosphere being at my biological mother's house of just like not knowing how to connect, but wanting to connect and never
yeah,
really getting it. And then being a part of a church that you're like, oh, okay, I'm finally going somewhere. And then like being
yeah,
looked over for any certain reason.
yeah.
Um, and it was just like rejection after rejection, dating. There's always like some sort of rejection in that too.
Mhm, mhm.
And it's just like a lot of me
Yeah,
searching for something bigger than me or for something that's gonna like click and the puzzle pieces are finally gonna fit and it's all gonna work out. Um, but yeah, I mean, rejection is everywhere and it happens to everyone.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I feel so happy where I am now and I feel so like just sorry for that girl
mhm,
that was on that rejection route and just searching and not really knowing that like okay, you're searching through like family or friends or dating or whatever it may be. And I wasn't really connected to God. And I think that's why I was
mhm.
just like, constantly being disappointed,
Yeah,
constantly confused, or not really being able to feel whole or complete. And gosh, it took, I mean, like I said, I'm 30, and this all started when I was, who knows? Who knows when it really started, but it's been a long journey and I think finally I understand that um my confidence and my peace and my purpose only comes from God And it's crazy because you hear that all throughout the church world and scripture and any motivational speaker that loves the Lord. That's what you hear. We know your purpose comes from God, your comfort, He's your comfort, He's your peace, He's your savior,
Yeah.
XYZ, blah, blah, blah. But until you're really immersed in like,
Yeah.
this is who God is, this is who God is for you. And this is why you're coming up short because people cannot they cannot fill you,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
your source of freedom, of hope, of safety all comes from the Lord. And it's, you know, I've loved the Lord my whole life, but I feel like I've just recently, it's like really clicked. Like,
Yeah.
why am I searching for people, or why am I getting so upset that they can't understand what I'm going through, or they still say stupid things, or, um, they're still insensitive,
Yeah.
all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
it still stings, but I feel like my foundation is so much more solid because I'm like, my eyes have been opened to just the pureness of God and the goodness of God, but also like the fact that people do not do not even compare. Like, even just searching through my husband, like, he helped me grow so much, but he is still a human, and he is still a sinner, and he
Yeah.
is, a person, and he is not the end all be all. God is, and my relationship is, and yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's powerful. It's so true too. Like we seek that validation or approval or satisfaction from other people.
Hmm.
And the only true source of that is Jesus. But I love how you so vulnerably like brought us into that truth because we do hear that everywhere,
Yeah.
and until it's real for you, and you experience that, like it is real, but you've got to find that for you. You can't just
Hmm.
have it as this token like Instagram post you share on social media or something, it has
Right.
to be in
Yes.
you. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you mentioned in even how you introduced yourself, you're still on this infertility journey, and I know you're in a
Hmm.
new chapter in a season with your husband. And if you're comfortable, I would
Yes.
love to give you the space to kind of walk us through where you're at now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So after we had our miscarriage, we, like I said, still struggling through life, trying to figure it out. We didn't really wait for any specific reason. We just like, trying to figure out my body, how things are
yeah.
gonna be from here on out. Um, so we just started trying, and
Okay.
we didn't do anything like special. We were just unsuccessful every month. And I think after like 6 months, the timeline is blurry now, but after a little
Yeah.
bit and just like hitting a wall, my OB eventually basically just said, I can't help you. I don't know why you're not getting pregnant, but I can't help you. Here are some business cards. Good luck.
Wow.
Um, so I will never go to that OB again. But that was like a point where I was just like, what the heck? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, I don't know what's wrong. Um,
Yeah.
like, who do I call? Like, okay, you gave me 3 business cards, but how do I know which one to call? Like, so unhelpful. Um, but I think I just was so frustrated, and time was, at that point, it felt like it was just slipping away from my grasp. So I think I called all 3 of them, and I scheduled appointments with all 3 of them because at I think it was January, February at that time, and they were just like booked solid until like
Wow.
August. So I just was like, okay, well, that's not going to work. Let me just call everyone and get on everyone's calendar, and then I'll go to the first one that ends up happening. Um, so I went to a fertility clinic in somewhere, and I rated, great doctor, great success, yada yada. Um, we were there probably 8, 9, 10 months. And we did a lot of different things. At first, we started with just like pills to stimulate ovulation, and none of that was working. We did a lot of tests. Everything came back, you're good. My husband did tests. He came back with flying colors on everything. So it was just like, what the heck is happening?
Yeah.
Why is this happening? I've been pregnant before. This doesn't make sense. So we did
Mm.
8 IUIs with this doctor. Um, the normal recommended amount is 3. Uh, I don't know why we did 8, but I think we just kept adding more things or souping up a shot or adding more like medication. Oh, it's going to work this time, but it didn't. Um, and those IUIs were around 2 grand each.
Oh,
So we were just like shoveling money because we didn't know why or, what else we should do, or just trusting this doctor and trying to figure it out through that. And after the last IUI, after that last one, we knew that our only options from here that we wanted to continue looking through was IVF or adoption.
mm,
And so we changed clinics.
okay.
Um, yeah, no real reason, but I think we just needed like a fresh start. And the doctor we're currently at was recommended through a family friend, and they had success the first try. So it just felt right. And yeah, like I said, nothing against the first doctor. I think, I don't know. You never really know. Like I kind
Yeah.
of, when I was there, I felt special. Like I would meet him at his desk, like it felt real. But then the second I went to the other doctor, I'm like, okay, he knows my name. He's the one doing the appointments. He's the one like communicating with me. So I felt more comfortable with him
Mm.
and less of like just another number coming through
Yeah.
the office.
Yeah.
So um yeah, so we started that last year, and IVF is expensive. So we had to raise money. Um and that was a challenge too, just because we had not really been open about fertility in any real capacity. Obviously with our family, not with the world, but with like our close knit people and like the people who we knew would pray for us. Um, but opening that door and letting people in was hard,
Yeah.
especially for me personally. But my husband also is not like a super open person. And he's very independent. So thinking about like letting people into our most vulnerable season was frightening, and also asking those people to donate money was also frightening.
Yeah.
um but yeah, we like had this whole plan. I like wanted to make sure it felt um legit, like I didn't want to just be like, we need money, and like throw out my Venmo, because that's so weird. And I don't want people to think like we're misusing any funds, because we had to raise $20,000, and that's like so much money. And um so we had like a little photo shoot. We bought a website name just to, keep it all consistent. And I'm a brand director, so I just like went on the creative route while my husband was like figuring out the fundraising website. And I just, had some posts, and I tried to have as much fun with it as I could, just because
Yeah.
it's weird and it's vulnerable, and it's not like I have like a million followers. I have like a handful of 100. So it's like it also felt weird to be like, "Hi world," to
Yeah.
my couple followers. um, but yeah, and so yeah, we pushed that out. Like I said, I can't even remember, but we pushed it out like fairly recently. Um, and we raised the money in 4 days, which was a complete shock and a complete miracle. A lot of our church family, our pastors, random people from our past, just everyone like really showed up, poured into us, and yeah, we were able to start everything in January. Um, we are also like scared to ask for 20 grand right after Christmas. So, you know, that was a
Yeah.
factor too, but thank God. And we raised it all, and it was, we, we even went over our goal a little. So our community really showed up, and, it was really cool and exciting and also terrifying because, we're like, okay, like maybe in 2 months we'll start. But it was like, okay, we have the money now. Let's just go now.
Yeah.
So we started this all in January. Um, we bought the meds and did the tests and like the whole process. The whole process is like 4 months long. So we're
Okay.
at the tail end of the process now.
Okay.
But yeah, so we couldn't start until we had all the money. So we had the money, and then we had to do that big chunk of change down payment, which was 10 grand. And then our medications were like around 5. So we were already like chipping away at that blessing up pot. But yeah, it's been really cool. And we did our egg retrieval uh, earlier this month, and we have 5 embryos that are frozen right now. We're still waiting for test results to determine like how many are normal and can be transferred. But yeah, we're just kind of like in the waiting phase right now, just waiting for results. And once we figure out how many actual normal healthy embryos we have, then we're going to transfer for whenever my next cycle happens. So sometime in April. And yeah, we're hopefully we can transfer 2 embryos and get twins. That's what we're praying for. But anything at this point would be great. We'll
Wow.
take one baby, I guess. Um, but yeah, it's been a crazy fast journey. Each month has felt like there's something super big and exciting, and then it's like 2 weeks of waiting. So it's just like it ramps up and then it slows down. But like I said, we're on the tail end, so we're just waiting for test results that should be coming any day, and then we can just like get this going and do our transfer in April, and hopefully have a little baby Gergen by early 2024.
Wow. Wow. I mean, thank you for sharing your journey with us and
Yeah.
inviting us into it. And what courage and bravery to invite the world into your journey. That's a
Yeah.
big deal. And it's also so beautiful to see how your community just rallied around you in
Mm-hmm.
4 days. Like, I remember
Yeah.
watching that on social media and I was like, oh my goodness. Like, it was
So wild.
special. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was special to watch people celebrate and believe with and pray with you guys, and, I'm just excited to see what God's gonna continue to do in each
Mm-hmm.
season of your journey. Um,
Yeah.
so that's amazing. I do know this about you, but I'm gonna ask,
Yeah.
how do you drink your coffee? Because I know you're a coffee
Oh,
drinker.
I am a coffee drinker. I want so badly to be like a girl with a specific order, like like, oh, a latte with 2 pumps, 165 degrees hot. Like, I don't know. Splash of this.
165. Yes.
But honestly, like my favorite drink is just like a
Mm,
vanilla cold brew. Um or, just coffee with vanilla flavoring and creamer is like my go-to. I'm simple, but I also like the fancy cold brews from
mm.
Starbucks. Um, but yeah, I so badly just want to be like, I'll take my usual, and it's like the stickers like this long. I don't know why I want that, but it just seems fun.
Maybe one day you'll have some
Yeah,
unique order that still tastes like the vanilla latte, but, like,
yeah,
there's multiple things, I don't know. I totally
maybe.
I'm tracking with what you're saying.
Yeah,
That's
I feel
awesome.
like it might be because one of my mentors in my when I was younger, she had such a specific order, and I love her. So maybe it's just like a little bit of me looking up to her, but her order was like blank, 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 but 11 ice cubes. So that was her thing.
So specific.
11 was the number.
I love that.
And I worked for her, so I would order her coffee sometimes, but I was just like, you're cool.
That's awesome. So if you were having a vanilla latte, iced vanilla latte, right? Or just like
Yeah.
hot or iced. Okay. So iced vanilla latte
Yeah.
with another friend and you're chatting, you're swapping stories about each other's becoming journeys. What would you say to encourage them to become who God made them to be?
Mm. I would just encourage them to really focus on like if they know themselves fully.
Mm.
And that's like such, it sounds so simple to say, but it's true. Like, unless you really know, like, what I like, what I don't like, how I feel respected, how I feel loved,
Yeah.
how I give respect, how I give love. I feel like knowing yourself and also having a relationship with God is so important. And it knowing yourself fully also just hand in hand will blossom that relationship with God, because then you can like fully understand what he's doing in your life and why you're on this path, and
Yeah.
where your past has brought you, how where you started, now you're here. You can like see the correlations. And yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, it took me a while to like really figure out who I was. But all throughout that, I had a solid relationship with God. But it was not truly like fully unleashed
Yeah.
until I was like, oh, this is who I am. This is how my boundaries are. This is how I communicate. This is how I love. This is, blah, blah, blah. Until I truly like really understood that my relationship was kind of like stagnant. I didn't feel like rainbows and butterflies all the time when people would say like, "Oh, God's got a plan. You got this. It's okay. There God has a reason for everything." And you're just like, "Cool. I know. I get it. I've read the scripture."
Yes.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of those. Um, but until I was like fully okay with who I
Mm.
am and not fighting, um, feeling like I was letting someone else down just because I had changed or grown,
Yeah.
um, that was a moment when I was like, okay, God, it's just you and me,
Yeah.
literally. And I can't do it without you. And clearly, I've been doing a lot of things without you, and not really recognizing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that answer the
Yeah,
question? I
no,
hope.
that's so powerful. Like it genuinely is so powerful. And I think it in a coffee conversation brings together the journey you've been on to where you are now at chapter 30 of your becoming
Yeah.
story, and how you've really had to do the work of getting to know who Kayla is, who God designed her to uniquely to be, and not allowing other voices to really dictate who you're going to be or what your boundaries are or what's important to you. Like you've had to learn to use your voice, and we
Right.
all need to learn that, and why what's important to us is important to us. Like I just think you
Hmm.
articulated that and empowered us beautifully. And I also love how throughout your story, you've equipped us and empowered us to, when we change and we do this warrior work of discovering who we are, not everybody's going to be ready for that or understand
Hmm.
it, and how to give grace to ourselves and them, but also the importance of having boundaries, that boundaries are healthy for all of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love how you unpacked
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that
Oh,
was
good.
really good. Yeah, girl. So if somebody was like watching your story today and they wanted to connect with you online, they want to continue to pray with and for you and cheer you on in this journey with
Mhm.
baby Gergen and stay updated
Yes.
on all the things, where can they connect with you?
Yes. So all of my social media is just Kayla Gergen. And we have a Give Send Go page, which was our fundraising page, but we're still posting updates of IVF. So that website is gergen.baby. which is so cute.
It's
And
so
you'll
cute.
remember it.
Yes, I love it.
But yeah, so we're posting updates and, it's not all IVF or all infertility, but, it's just our life and we're just going as we're just figuring it out as we go and we're just posting as life comes and yeah, hopefully there's a good update soon and yeah, we appreciate all the prayers and all the people who we know personally or who are just like connecting with our
Yeah,
journey somehow through sharing or word of mouth or however it may be.
yeah,
But yeah, we're so thankful for just the opportunity to be going through IVF that we're just like, it's a miracle we're here. It still sucks, but we're just gonna try and thank God for this opportunity because we could not have done this without him and especially without our community and our friends and family around us.
oh, that's amazing, and we'll have all the links in the show notes so you guys can easily connect and follow, Kayla
Yes.
and her journey, but Kayla, as we wrap up your story today, is there anything else that you would wanna share to just encourage people as they're becoming who God made them to be too?
Yeah, I just want to say keep going. You're not going to get it right the first time, and um, God is with you. And as long as you're like cultivating and honoring that relationship, He's never going to leave you. People come and go, friendships come and go, family's going to disappoint you, friends are going to disappoint you, but God is that
Yeah.
steady, consistent friend. And yeah, just lean on Him and have grace for people around you who don't get it. Um, however the situation may be, whatever season you're in, there will be people that don't get it, but just have grace for them, have grace for yourself, and go to therapy.
Yes. Yes, girl. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, the
Yeah,
gift of who you are. It's not easy to share all of these different parts of our story, and you did, and you invited so many other people, including me, into the freedom to really discover who we are and use our voice and set boundaries and lean into the really challenging parts of our
mm,
stories. So thank you for sharing who you are with us. I love
yeah.
you, I respect you, and I
I
appreciate
love
you,
you
warrior
too,
friend.
of course.